Hi, I'm Jason and welcome to Dosatron University. Today we will show you how to replace the Dosatron D8 series piston shell and the actuator assembly. Before you start, be sure to work in a clean, flat area like a desk or bench. I recommend having a couple of containers to hold the small parts. You will also need a small tip Phillips head screwdriver and an awl. To begin, locate and unscrew the plunger assembly on your piston. In this section, we will be working with 13 screws, 8 with washers and 5 without. They're all the same size. Your first step is to find the rack and rack guide. There are 2 screws that hold the guide in place. Remove these screws and lift the guide up and off of the rack and set aside. Now you can pull the rack up and out of the piston. The next step is to remove these 4 upper valves. There's a screw holding each valve in place. Hold the valve like this and remove each screw and washer. The valve will drop down and off of the piston. Now, locate the 4 axle bearing screws. Unscrew and remove each screw and washer. The remaining 2 screws are the arm axle screws. Unscrew and remove both of them. Locate the toggle spring. Then carefully push the toggle spring out of the arm slot. In order to remove the mechanism from the piston shell, locate the actuator bearings. Now carefully pry up each bearing like this. Locate the toggle spring arm and carefully pry the arm up slightly and slide the arm pin out. The toggle spring wraps around the area where the axle is located. Carefully push it over like this and lift the assembly up and out of the piston shell. A few things might fall off or will need to be removed. These are 2 bearings from either side of the axle and a metal pin from the kick plate. Set them aside. If you are replacing the piston shell, click here to continue. If you are changing the actuator assembly, flip the mechanism over and locate the small screw between the lower valves. Unscrew and remove it. Find the pin that holds the metal portion of the actuator in the valve support. There are 2 holes in the valve support, one small and one large. Using the awl, start from the small hole and press the pin out of the large hole. If the actuator assembly doesn't fall out, remove it by rotating the gear counterclockwise and lift the assembly up and out of the valve support like this. You can discard the old actuator assembly. Your new actuator assembly has a metal plate located in the middle. Make sure the metal plate is in this position. It should be close to the axle. Before you install the new actuator assembly, locate the larger hole in the bottom of the valve support. Now, hold the actuator assembly with the barrel on the same side as the larger hole in the valve support and slide the metal plate on the actuator assembly into the valve support like this. Now we are ready to reinstall the small pin to lock the actuator in place. Hold the actuator in support like this and align the hole in the metal plate with the hole in the support as best as you can. From the larger hole, push the pin in as far as possible. Then use the awl and press it in all the way. Test to see if the actuator pulls out of support. If so, push the pin out and try again. Before reinstalling the screw, visually inspect to make sure the pin doesn't obstruct the screw hole. Now, reinstall the screw in the bottom of the valve support and make sure the screw is flush. Make sure the kick plate and toggle spring arm are in this position. If you are replacing the piston shell, discard the old one and grab the new one. Or if you were replacing the actuator assembly, use your existing piston shell. In order to reassemble the piston, locate the 1-inch kick plate pin. It's the shorter one. Then slide it into the kick plate. This pin must align with the groove inside the piston shell here. Before installing, hold the arm up with your index finger and make sure the kick plate pin is in the correct position. Carefully align the mechanism inside the piston shell, with the kick plate pin in the groove inside the piston shell, and with the upper part of the white valve support sliding onto the black guides. It should drop into place. Now, carefully lift the mechanism up slightly and place one of the bearings on each side of the axle. But don't press them down yet, leave them floating. Adjust the toggle spring arm so it's near the spring. To reattach the spring, carefully lift the arm up and grab the straight portion of the spring. Bring it up and around, sliding it into the small notch on the side of the arm. Then, press the coil portion of the spring around the round portion of the arm like this. Next, install the other pin into the arm like this. If one of the small circular gray bushings slide out when you press the axle in, stop and press it back into the arm before you continue. The bushings must be there for the assembly to function correctly. To wrap up, we need to align the rack with the gear. To begin, take a look at the gear. If the small stainless pin is on the left side, it needs to be rotated. To do this, turn the gear counterclockwise until the actuator clicks and the pin is on the right side or at the 4 o'clock position. This metal pin is a timing mark. To install the rack, position it with the long, slender portion down and install it into the piston like this. The metal pin should align with the first tooth on the rack. If it aligns, slide the rack guide over the rack, pressing it down. Then, position the 2 screws and hand tighten. Press down on the toggle arm. Now position the 2 axle arm screws and hand tighten. Now's the time to press the bearings down and position the 4 bearing screws with washers and hand tighten. To reinstall the upper valves, press each up from the bottom of the shell. Hold the valve like this and position each screw with its washer and hand tighten. To test the piston, press the rack down and pull it back up a few times. It should click in both directions. Now reinstall the plunger. We hope this video has been helpful in servicing your D8 series piston. For more information, give us a call at 800-523-8499 or visit us online at dosatronusa.com. To see our other videos, check out our YouTube channel or see the video page on our website. I'm Jason, and this is Dosatron University.